Everyone, it's Adrienne here. Just popping on today with a little happy solstice message. And I just wanted to share with you some reflections that have been arising in my awareness at this time of year, both personally and collectively. And so each week I do my best to write a blog. This last week that just passed, today's Sunday, was called Diving for Light. And it was a expression, a sharing of the health crisis that I've been going through recently. And I want to share about that just a little bit in this solstice message, but not so much through the personal lens, but yes, because everything is personal, but this collective lens that all of our systems, whether it's our physical system or our economic system or our ecosystem, is all connected. And so when we have one part of our system breaking down, it's going to, of course, eventually affect every other system. And I think this is the awareness that is in the process of being born for the collective. We still have the old guard up fighting for the old model of ego identity and how that causes us to relate to each other and to the idea of systems and this myth of independence and power and dominance through force. And that is in the process of dying out. And so there's a lot of craziness arising, duality. There is double speak happening. There's the cracks in the facade of the inability of this reasoning system to hold itself up anymore. And it's showing all the contradictions, all the false illusions and assumptions. And it's almost like the surface of life is being peeled back and looked at. And we're all being invited to look for the light in what might not appear very hospitable or welcoming or kind. And we're looking for the gold in it. Like, what is this here to teach us? Just as a healing crisis in my body is happening right now, I'm being asked the same question. What is the gold or the light in this that is asking to be known through this experience in my body and the bigger body, the political body, that all the systems that I just mentioned? So this all centers around what's feeling like a recreation of what compassion is and what we've been taught that compassion is. And this seems to be a real sticking point where you see an attack on empathy, the lack of empathy, the outright vitriol and attack, especially on social media, where there's this seeming anonymity, anonymity behind the screen. People feel like they can say what they want to say, and it's harder to get behind to the heart of people and to really go to the core of humanity, right? We're getting lost on all the superficial emotional programs and reactions and ego responses, which are unattended to parts of ourselves. And this is This is by definition part of what a healing crisis is. It's that part of our body, whether it's our physical body or political body or any other type of field or body that has a symptom that's causing pain or discomfort or disease and is threatening the entirety of the system. And so this, for me, seems to be the loudest part of what's happening right now is an invitation to redefine compassion, and not as a weakness, not as a sacrifice of self, to be a martyr, to be held for admiration for all that you've sacrificed, right? Especially for women who have historically held the larger part of the emotional labor in relationships in our society, in the home. And uh, not that this isn't a noble role, nor that we should do this, but maybe, women shouldn't be held solely responsible for carrying this weight. And that it's actually a human trait, not based on gender, but it is the ability to be connected to one's heart as one that feels, because that feeling is our GPS. And some people have projected this out onto religion in all various forms. Not that it's right or wrong, but it creates an inability to self reflect and take accountability and responsibility for our own way of being in the world. I don't personally have anything against religion. What I am speaking to is the way it has allowed people, some people in some ways, things are never ever just one way, to live disconnected from their own heart. And so it's kind of ironic. But when we outsource our connection to source onto a person, a place, a thing, an institution, we they become the middleman for us. And I don't feel that anyone can be a middleman responsibly for our own embodied lived experience, and that the real heart of any religious tradition is to actually to be fully alive and embodied um, through the appreciation of the beauty of life versus um, lack or sin or um, being not good enough. And so there's a lot of fear and self hatred and self rejection that has often been internalized, which has been really damaging and has shaped compassion as suffering. And so as we're right entering the darkest night of the year, and tomorrow the days will begin incrementally getting longer again. It's a celebration of the return of the light. And if anything, it's a celebration of uh, the light of consciousness being able to observe itself with compassion. And the compassion invites discernment, not judgment, but discernment. Judgment is that which is left over from othering of others, othering as in good, bad, right, or wrong. And instead of remembering how to hear and receive people's hearts of what's being what wants to be heard, what wants to be seen, what wants to be felt. And perhaps if we had more capacity to do that, instead of getting in he said, she said, or other types of projection, blame, arguments, we could resolve much of the conflict that we're seeing across the world. But there's this adolescence and even childlike demeanor of some of the leaders in this country and across the world who are still living from this self-centric perspective, and they're ruling because the systems were built out of that. And so there's a polycrisis as far as um, multiple systems are breaking down or being disrupted at this time on purpose for a reason. And so the reason is that in order to create something new, these systems must break down, and they're breaking down because the center of our constellation, our social constellation, can no longer be this sense of I that is disconnected from other and the uh, the landscape of our earth and our planet. And so our whole constellation is having to reorientate um, around all of the parts in the constellation, um, and not necessarily a central model of leadership of the I who's leading. There are multiple I's that are leading in order for this new part of our humanity to be birthed and to emerge into a new expression of how we do life, how we create systems that are able to meet the needs of the people, which was the original vision of the United States. And it still is, we're still working on birthing that vision that our forefathers, foremothers had, to include all of the people involved, not just a certain race or color or social status. So we're learning. It takes time, it takes patience, and really it's taking a way of relating to ourselves that many of us were never trained in. And this brings me to the importance of somatic work, because it's all everything we need to know, all of the answers, all of the intelligence and treasures are already in us. But we have to be present enough to listen, to receive. And that only happens by being available in the present moment. And that the wisdom has multiple streams. Each human heart is another facet of this information, this data stream that is organic intelligence itself trying to wake itself up. And the more readily that we can receive ourselves, and when I say receive ourselves, I mean to be able to listen and feel those parts of ourselves that we may have never had the capacity, skills, or practices to receive. And so there seems a huge calling right now for a whole, I don't like to use the word army, but a whole um, subset of humanity that is been preparing for this time to help people remember this inner knowing and to rewrite their model of compassion from suffering to um, one that is self-inclusive. And so it's this really interesting dichotomy underneath this because there's this total focus on self, but it's not the authentic version of self. It's a manufactured survival model that this culture produces that we think is ourself. And then we murder that version. What I'm talking about is something much more inclusive and expansive. It is the self that existed um, pre before it was downloaded, let's say, with all of this idea of what it means to be a good person from the outside world. And the focus is shifting to our internal orientation of how we're managing, how we look at ourselves and others, how we source our life. Am I sourcing it from the reflection of other people's admiration, acceptance, love, or am I actually so connected to source that my sense of self is no longer contingent on the mirror out there because I have the mirror of source itself, which is the prime directive. It is um, the it is the source code that has all of the information that life needs in order to survive. And it is innate, it is a natural byproduct of being recalibrated or to um, land with ourselves, land in with ourselves with a level of compassion that is based on allowing. And this means that uh, we get to determine how and the best way for us to use our life force energy. And a lot of the moral questions get dropped because once you realize that there's only one life to serve, and that life energy has its own law outside of all of the constructions that we've made in this world that have just gotten in the way now. And so it is the return of, I want to say it's the return of the cognitive or narrative conceptual sense of self back to the organic version of self and a balance between the two. And so I'll just close with saying that um, my health crisis is doing just that. It is calling me to all of those parts of myself that I was never able to develop, which is self compassion, self empathy, the ability to hold my experience without trying to distract or run away or go into some sort of mental construction of the world versus the present moment experience, the felt sense of being alive in a body. And all of the distortion around that. And of course, it's connected to a sense of loss and a sense of grief, but it's also a beautiful homecoming that is underneath everything. And if the holiday season isn't about that, I don't really know what we're celebrating. The return of the light is the return of consciousness to itself, to remember exactly its true identity as a member in a collective of humanity that by nature is compassionate, is loving, is kind, is innocent, and that there is some sort of, I don't know, people have called it a mind virus, but it really has to do with this, the shaping of perception and how we've been allowed to see ourselves in the world. And so this whole team of individuals that have come here to help this planet, the people on the planet, remember the original source code. So each person can return to the fullness of their own humanity. Feels like it's happening. I don't know about you. And, I can't use the old strategies I've tried to live my life in for as long as I can remember. That's the tools I was inherited, I was given by my culture, my society, my family. They are all having to be dropped because they don't work. They're ineffective. They're no longer available. They're no longer viable. And anytime I try to go to what my personality knows, I'm given a sometimes harsh reminder that that door has closed and the new one's opening. And we're standing on the threshold. And life is asking us, are we willing to cross over? Are we willing to step into the new world, the new dynamic that includes allowing this intelligence to move through us that's only available in this present moment? It's not available in the past. It's not available in an imagined future. Not that we can't plan, not that we shouldn't have plans, but it's a different orientation to life force energy itself, to the idea that everything is energy. And where is the place in consciousness that it is most efficiently accessed and used? And I've clearly been shown in the past 5 years, it's taken me to get this message. And now I've had the fullness of the message delivered into my being through this health crisis. Like, I can't unsee it. That it's always now o'clock, and it's always been now o'clock. And anything that's worth anything will always happen in this present moment. And it is an orchestration of multiple consciousnesses happening all at once that have plugged into the source code. And it's not that we were ever unplugged. It's just that the connection was compromised because of all the other data streams that were overwriting overwriting our source code. And now we're being asked to release all of those to live, to be able to continue to live on this planet, and for me to live in my body. But But I just want to let you know that I'm okay. I have support. I'm getting the treatment that I need. And I feel really hopeful. And I feel the return of the light in my life and on this planet in a way that I can't say I felt in quite some time. So I'm sending you a beautiful solstice blessing to you at this time. May you let the light hold you and remind you. I know the holidays can be a difficult time for a lot of people, especially with the superficial production of the holiday that many of us just aren't living anymore. We just can't. It's a it's a been it's been a production of consumerism and all of the things that go with that mindset. And many people and are longing deep in their hearts to remember the return of the light beyond the glittering, flashing lights and the tinsel and all of the production that goes into Christmas. Not that we shouldn't be with our families, not that we shouldn't celebrate, not that we shouldn't have nice things. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that this season delivers the gifts of the Spirit, which can't, of course, be bought in any store. And so I'll leave you with that. And I'm sending you all of my love. And I will be back in the new year. Don't even get me started on that yet. But I guess we already have been started. This is just the beginning of this transformation that we're stepping into. So if you'd like to know more about doing this work with me as part of the training team here to remind people how to reconnect with their own source code, send me a message, send me a comment, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. All right, until next time, please remember what a valuable treasure you are, and bye for now.